Hey there, Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting dodo birds. Leaky Black, Matt Norlander is here with me. Happy New Year, everybody. It's 2025. This is probably going to be like the best year ever in the history of the world. So I can't wait. I can't wait. If you're
That's the energy. No, I don't want any sarcasm.
No.
I want genuine earnestness and enthusiasm and optimism for what awaits over the next 12 months.
I think this is going to be the best year in the history of our planet. I'm really looking forward to it. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do to the like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. If you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, please also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. Kansas and West Virginia, they didn't want to wait until 2025 to get their Big 12 openers out of the way, so they did it on New Year's Eve. Tough situation on the surface for Darren DeVries. First ever game in the Big 12 at West Virginia. He's got to play it inside Allen Fieldhouse against preseason number 1 while he's missing 2 of his top 3 scores, and after his team experienced flight problems and power at the hotel problems. If they would have lost by 20, it would have been more sensible than what they actually did. Final score, West Virginia 62, Kansas 61. Javon Small made a free throw with 1.8 seconds remaining to hand the Jayhawks their first loss in a conference opener. Crazy as this sounds, since January 1991. It sounds made up. It's not made up. It's true. Norlander, Happy New Year. Did what happened inside Allen Fieldhouse on Tuesday tell you more about the Jayhawks, or are you starting to perk up a little bit at West Virginia?
I might say more West Virginia than not. Javon Small, no stranger to that building, of course, having played at Oklahoma State prior to this a season ago. And yeah, this was quite the noisy result to end 2024 for Kansas. That stat you provided does sound made up. It's another one that we will never. I'm gonna go on record. I don't know how much longer human civilization will last on this planet. Pretty confident we'll get through 2025 at least. Whether it's 100 years or 100 million years. We're not getting another team at a high major conference to go 33 straight. This isn't just not just home openers. Any conference opener period, Kansas had won 33 in a row. That's ridiculous. That practically dates back to the start of Roy Williams's tenure when he was coaching the Jayhawks there. I think it does say more about West Virginia. I will say, it was the travel delays. They didn't even get in apparently to their hotel until like 2:30 in the morning. And then they wake up, these teams they wake up, they've got team meal, they got breakfast. Apparently the hotel didn't have power when they woke up before the game. So a lot of the stuff, the rhythm, the cadence of like going on the road. And it's by the way, it's your first game. You're playing at Kansas. West Virginia's unranked. You don't have Tucker DeVries. Who knows if and when he'll be able to return this season? That remains to be seen. Amani Hansberry, the number 3 scorer on the team, he's not available. And you pull off one of the better wins in regular season in recent history for West Virginia because you're with the first-year coach. Just mighty, mighty, mighty impressive. So, and although it's not like West Virginia and Kansas had been playing each other for decades, it was West Virginia's first win ever in that building. To pull that off, Small got the foul on Badunga. This was, as is usually the case, watching it, pulled it up on the old ESPN Plus, by the way. So if you were frantically searching for this and couldn't find it, because it was on the old streaming service there. The crowd sounded incredible. Kansas made a big push. Both teams went through stretches of no scoring for minutes at a time in the final 12 minutes or so of the game. And then when it looked like Kansas was going to get this game to overtime somehow with that Fog Allen voodoo magic, Small induces Flory Badunga, freshman big man. He only hits 1 of 2, but 1.8 seconds to go. He hits the foul shot. And then despite some intimacy on the final play for Kansas, there was no foul call, and that was obviously a bit tough. Kansas fans not loving the whistle. I will say you went 19 for 21 from the line. West Virginia just 4 of 6, so the free throw disparity wasn't all that close, and West Virginia won it all the same. It does wrap up the worst calendar year by far Bill Self has had. at Kansas and really arguably as a coach, period. 20-13 overall in the year 2024. Kansas was a 6 seed, its worst finish ever in the league to end last season, but then you carry over here and now just 9-3. Want to get to KU a little bit here too, but give some credit to West Virginia. They've been able to beat Arizona. We'll see how good Arizona is. But hey, you beat Arizona. That's a good one on a neutral in the Bahamas. You beat Gonzaga.
Right.
Gonzaga isn't top 10 like we thought they were, but still that's a good one. And now you win at Kansas. Every year, GP, we get a few surprising teams that wind up working their way to the NCAA tournament when in the preseason they weren't projected anywhere close to that. Maybe, just maybe, Darren DeVries, who was quietly a really quality hire, maybe he and West Virginia will be one of those surprises in a couple of months.
Yeah, they're 10-2 now, and 3-1 in quadrant one with the wins over Kansas, Gonzaga, Arizona. Like you do one, like you said, we'll see how good Arizona is. That's up for debate right now. But if you do one of Gonzaga, Kansas, like those are two teams that have beaten other good teams. Like those are, I know Gonzaga, people are maybe a little skeptical that they are now what they appeared to be on opening night, but still Gonzaga's beaten somebody. Kansas has beaten people. West Virginia's beaten both of those teams. That's impressive. The Q1 loss is like by 24 at Pitt. They also have a Q2 loss on the resume to Louisville. That was down in Atlantis. They went down there, tried to battle a little bit, lost that battle, but I moved them up to 24 in the top 25 and one. I think the resume is top 25 and one worthy at this point. So obviously taking over a Big 12 job and suddenly finding yourself in a league with Scott Drew and Bill Self and all these monster programs, Kelvin Sampson, that's always going to be difficult, but less difficult when you can bring your son with you who's an All-American level player. But again, he wasn't available in this one, and it's a shoulder. We'll see when he's back and ready to go, but to go in there down two of your top three and pull off that upset as a 12.5 point underdog, super impressive stuff. You mentioned that both teams had stretches, where scoring was a little difficult down the stretch. Kansas opened the game like that too, missed 15 of its first 19 shots. Kansas was down 9-0, then down 18 at one point in the second half, and really had to fight just to get they're back to even. It
never once held the lead in the game either, by the way.
Right. Yeah. It went from West Virginia's down two of its top three inside Allen Fieldhouse, no shot, to, oh my God, West Virginia's up 18. Kansas is done here, to, okay, now we're tied. Let's see where we go. It was one of those types of games. But Kansas, Bill Self afterwards said it was horrid and the worst offensive team he's ever seen inside Allen Fieldhouse in his 22 years. I don't know if that's hyperbole.
It is, because they actually wound up scoring more than 1 point per possession. But regardless, I understand what he's saying. They were also 4 of 16 from 3-point range. And as we've mentioned before, bigger issue here, man. AJ Storr didn't score. Rylan Griffin had 3 points. Dickinson, how they schemed up against Dickinson was actually really, really smart. But this is now the big issue. The sky is not falling in Lawrence. They're 9-3. They were the preseason number 1 team. That was a misfire, or at least it certainly looks like it right now. But damn, man, Self is an amazing coach, and I think he'll probably be able to get this figured out. But right now, in the here and now, it doesn't look like he hit it in the portal the way that most people thought he did.
Yeah, it might be a situation where they got a lot of good college players, like individual college players, but they don't fit well together. Like something that makes sense for a fantasy team, but like we're playing real basketball here. In a time where shooting has never been more important, Kansas is starting 4 dudes who are shooting below 34% from 3. And every KU lineup with its most talented people in it is going to be a 2-big lineup with one of the bigs shooting below 32% from 3 and the other big not shooting them at all. And are you aware of how much Kansas fans hate KJ Adams?
No, because I mean, you might be aware because maybe they're populating your mentions with it. I know there's been some frustration with them, but to the level that you're indicating, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, just do a Twitter search on his name every once in a while. Like, he's a 6'7" power forward with no stretch ability. I do a weekly segment with Soren Petro in Kansas City, and he comes up all the time. And, he's again, 6'7" power forward, no stretch ability. He is 0 of 7 from 3 in his career. of 119 games.
At least he's not forcing it,
He's definitely not forcing it. So he doesn't shoot it. He doesn't really rebound. Why does he play 29 minutes a game? That's what Kansas fans would ask. And I realize, yes, there's some advanced stuff that suggests he brings value to the court, but what KU fans would tell you is he's a computer tricker. like I wrote in the top 25, and when I get their frustration with him. It's to the point where, like, I watched Bill's post-game press conference yesterday, and even the local media is starting to be like, so what are we doing with this KJ Adams thing? Like, they're starting to ask questions about it. And I shouldn't say starting to. They might have been doing it for years now, but it was certainly a topic of conversation yesterday. Now Kansas is just 2-3 in its past 5. That's not normal for Kansas to go 2-3 in any 5-game stretch. And in that 5-game stretch, you know how to sort data. I do too. I've been doing it for a little while now. They're 74th at Torvik in this little stretch from December 4th to December 31st, 163rd in offense, 44th in defense. So offensively, they're not playing a modern style of basketball. They barely shoot threes.
I think this is even more than the Adams stuff. This is because Kansas fans, they're widespread, they're passionate. I'd say many fan bases have many smart people, but I'd say on average across the board, Kansas fans would rank in the top 5 of the most dialed in, intelligent fan bases that are out there, and they are all too aware that what Bill Self is trying to do with this roster is out of step with what a lot of other teams at the college level at minimum are doing right now, and that's why you have a team that was projected preseason number 1, not even close to that conversation right now. Zeke Mayo has been improved. I actually thought Badunga gave you a little bit of good stuff yesterday, but he's not going to be an offensive reliability. But you're not having nearly as much as you want from Storr, Griffin. We mentioned the Adams stuff there. I trust Self. I do. I trust him to figure out a way to make this work because he's a really, really good coach, and that program has a way of doing it. But coming off of what they've done over the past 12 months, it will be interesting to see if it does happen this year. And by this happening, GP, I want to quantify it specifically. Can you be one of the top 2 teams in the Big 12? Can you find out a way, if you got a way to do that? And in doing so, get yourself into a top 3 seed? Or are we going to have kind of a repeat of what we've seen in recent years? Because I think some Kansas fans, if they're not gripping yet, they're kind of like, what the hell, man? Like they've been dining out on a champagne budget for a long time, and suddenly the tide has turned, and the style of play that Bill Self is doing with this roster seems to not be providing a level of performance and optimism that Kansas is used to. And I want to see how they adjust over the next 2 or 3 weeks, because if they don't, Big 12 is not great, but you're not promised just because you got Kansas across the jersey. You're not promised that you're going to be a top 3 team in that league. So adjustments need to come, and they need to come fast.
Used to be promised that, though, for a while.
It very much was, but at times
it was a promise.
It ain't 2024 anymore, and it ain't 2020 or 2014 or 2010 at that. We're now in 2025, and there's got to be some big changes.
Isn't it wild how the calendar works like that?
Someone, I think it was Chris Vanini, who covers college football, he had sent something out on Tuesday night. He's like, it basically was something along the lines of like, it really is 2025. Like, we're living in years that we didn't think that we didn't think possible, that were so futuristic. It is kind of wild to think about. 2025, man, it's here. We keep getting older. That calendar keeps changing.
I thought for sure I'd be flying to work by now, and I don't mean like Delta flight. I mean just like I'd have my own little wings or something. I thought for sure I'd have my own little wings by now.
Yeah, I know. It's a bummer.
Maybe someday. My car does drive me every once in a while though, if I allow it. So that's kind of neat. But I thought for sure I'd have.
Gary Parrish, Tesla guy.
I thought for sure I'd have. It was purchased before things went sideways.
Yeah, you slapped one of those bumper stickers on the back, did you?
No.
You know those bumper stickers, right?
I bought it before things went sideways. I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
One of those bumper stickers on the back of it. We bought this
I don't know how much that dude knows about social media apps, but he makes a pretty good car. I tell you that, he makes a pretty good car. But I don't know about his social media apps, but he makes a pretty good car. All right, I dropped Kansas down to 14th in the top 25 and 1. That's the lowest they've been at any point in this season. I, like you, trust Bill Self to figure it out. Seems like it'd be crazy not to, given his career. But I do think the roster is flawed in some ways. And even if they do, quote, figure things out, they might not. And this is perhaps what the season tells us so far. They might not be what some of us, if not most of us, given they were preseason number 1, thought they were going to be, say, back in early November. Let's move on. West Virginia winning at Kansas. That was not the only interesting development from the past couple of days. We'll get to a few more next, but first, let's get a word from our partners.
We need the sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Right, Norlander. Let's call it the Wednesday Whiparound. What else happened while I was traveling to New York on Tuesday, watching episode 8 of Landman, streaming now on Paramount Plus?
Let's start with the Bonnies, man. St. Bonaventure beat VCU 77-75. The Bonnies are 13-1. It's their best start since the 69-70 season, where they famously, shouts to Bob Lanier, made the Final Four. And this game had 16 lead changes, 10 ties, came down to the final minute. Mighty impressive. Both these teams are good enough to make the NCAA tournament. St. Bonaventure has actually built out a genuine NCAA tournament resume to this point, getting to 13-1. This was the league opener. Obviously, VCU falls to 10-4. He needs to avoid all the landmines there. But Melvin Council came up big late there. He hit the game winner in the closing seconds on a layup to the lane there. So, yeah, man. I don't know if this team can get to 21-1, which is what that 69-70 group wound up doing. But as much as we are happy for our buddy Adrian Wojnarowski, credit to obviously the players and Mark Schmidt. Mark Schmidt, an incredible coach here. The only loss that St. Bonaventure has, if you aren't aware, is a 5-point loss down in Florida to fellow 13-1 team Utah State. So it's a really quality resume. And Chance Moore, Melvin Council, Noah Brown, they've got some good dudes there. And this game was a little bit lost in the shuffle, just a little bit there, but it was one of the, going in, one of the 3 or 4 biggest matchups on the entire A-10 slate for the season ahead as things stand right now. And the Bonnies, they get it done. They've got road ones coming up against Fordham and St. Louis. We'll see how they fare there, but a 13-1 start is way beyond what anyone expected, and a really cool development in Central/Western New York.
Bonnie started 121st at KenPom, up to 76 now. You can give credit to the players if you want to. I choose to give all my credit to Woj.
Okay. All of it? I mean, I don't even think
I'm
Woj
all of I'm going to give some of it to Mark Schmidt, obviously, but everything else goes to Woj.
Hey, I think, had he not, him coming to the program, I think actually did genuinely inject new types of energy. And I think those things are truly connected. And this is becoming one of the cooler storylines in the sport.
He's on track to be GM of the year in his first year as a GM.
Well, should we create this award?
Yes.
Because it's not out there, but I think you've just stumbled upon something he is on track to be GM of the year. They're 13-1 right now.
Woj is going to be the first ever CBS Sports College Basketball General Manager of the Year, 2025.
Yeah,
I think so.
He's the leader in the clubhouse for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna get a little.
He's not even in the clubhouse yet. The game's
not even in the clubhouse, but he is the leader. He's the leader outside of the clubhouse. I think that's the proper way to put it.
Right now, they're like 5 under par, and they just made the turn. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, like he's a leader outside the clubhouse. He's having a good round though. He's having a good round. Putter's working.
Another team that's surprising is UCF. UCF beat Texas Tech on Tuesday, and in doing so, Johnny Dawkins' team got to 10-2. And remember, they opened the season at home with a win over Texas A&M. Since then, hadn't really gained another win of note. But to do this and to go on the road and beat Texas Tech, which has been a disappointment so far, I think it's clear to say Texas Tech does not have a top 100 win yet. Don't know if I predicted UCF would be the sneaky team to make the tournament out of the Big 12 in the preseason. You probably don't remember that, but I did say that. It's certainly pacing toward that. We'll see if Johnny Dawkins' team, the Knights, can get that done. But that was a good quality road win on Tuesday. Couple of home ones to know. BYU just had no issue whatsoever with Arizona State. Cougars are now 10-2. They won 76-56. Cougars are another Big 12 team looking NCAA tournament-like in year one under Kevin Young. So we'll see if UCF and BYU, two teams that UCF for sure, and BYU maybe some people thought, some people didn't, but they weren't. Neither of those teams were like, oh yeah, they're going to be top 7 in the Big 12 and make the NCAA tournament. Both are, they're looking good as we flip into January here. And then Creighton beat St. John's 57-56 despite getting down 18-7 early. Ryan Kalkbrenner, Stephen Ashworth had 15 of the last 19 points for the Jays in this one to eke out a win, just barely keep St. John's at edge there. Ryan Kalkbrenner, by the way, was able to crack the 1,000 point, 500 rebound, 200 block shot barrier in regular season Big East play. That's for his career, not in one game. That would also be a record, obviously. First dude to ever do that. Kind of a distinct mark, but Creighton sent it along, and good on Kalkbrenner all the same. Creighton, I don't want to say couldn't afford to lose a home game, but man, if it lost this game to St. John's, it would have been, from a resume standpoint, it would have been kind of interesting because the Kansas win's still good, but it's faded a little bit, but it's still good. So a good win for the Blue Jays on Tuesday. And then elsewhere in GP on Tuesday, take up with any of these here. Marquette had no issue at Providence. It really might be a lost year for the Friars. They can't get fully healthy. It wasn't even close. They won by 28, and it might as well have been 40. Marquette maintains to be a national title contender that too few people recognize or talk about. And then Utah State, 13-1. They won at Nevada. They've won 3 in a row. Are the Aggies in your top 25-1 as of today after finally getting another road win and improving the record all the more?
They are not. I had to move West Virginia in. I mean, I guess I didn't have to. It's up to me. I can do whatever I want. I could put Chicago State in there if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And I might someday. It's 2025. I'm going to start living a little differently. I'm going to start living a little differently in 2025, right? So I didn't have to move West Virginia in, but I chose to move West Virginia in. That actually bumped North Carolina out. So the Tar Heels would be 27 now. And if you want to call Utah State like 28 and throw Drake in there somewhere, that's fine with me. They're not in now, but if somebody else wanted to put them somewhere on a ballot, it's fine with me. They look the part. With St. John's, like strong computer numbers, like top 20 in some of the computers, but right now, 11-3, 0 quadrant 1 wins, 0-3 in quadrant 1. Best wins over Richard Pitino. Like, think about this. St. John's right now has 0 wins over teams in the top 80 at KenPom that are not coached by a man that Rick Pitino literally created. Think about that.
It's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And that's not the type of stuff you're going to get from ESPN Stats and Info, right?
No.
So a little. Rick tweeted yesterday there's no team he'd rather go into 2025 with than this one. I would pick 96.
What's he supposed to say?
I would pick.
What is he? He's like, damn, I wish I had that Auburn roster right now. I mean, is he going to put that on social media?
Yes,
I wish he would. It'd be amazing. Great content. We'd lead the podcast with it. But he's not going to be out there being like, God, what I wouldn't do to trade Zuby Ejiofor for Cooper Flagg. He's not going to put that out there.
I would put that out there. At this point, what do you have to lose in your career, Hall of Fame career?
I would say
I would have tweeted, there is nothing to lose. I would have tweeted, congrats to Creighton, but I still like my team. There's no team I'd rather go into 2025 with except for maybe Auburn, and I do like the Vols, and if you'd give me 96 Kentucky, I'd take them too.
Listen, I like where we're at, but I've got to explore if it's possible to work out some sort of trade for Simeon Wilcher for Keyshawn Gilbert. Let's see if I can make it happen. But otherwise, yeah.
That's
fair enough.
GM. That's where you need a GM. The quality of
That's
Woj.
true. I don't know if St. John's has a GM right now.
He could maybe pull something off. With Providence, Bryce Hopkins didn't play again. He's only played 3 times now this season, and not since December 10th. 0-6 in their past 6 games without him. 2-1 with him this season. 0-6 in their past 6 without him. Are we at a point where he's just not going to be healthy this entire season? And you use the term lost, like it could just be a lost season for them. That's a borderline top 25 team coming into the season, I thought, with a healthy Bryce Hopkins. And now it just looks like we might not ever have a healthy Bryce Hopkins.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's a lost season for Providence.
Do you redshirt? Do you redshirt and get you one more good
NIL deal? Oh, well, actually, it's not too late for him. If he has not, that's actually it's up to him. 3 games. Played 3 games, and then you got to hit it by. Do you have to hit it by a certain calendar date or not? I can't remember that, but he could redshirt. He's been in college hoops a minute here, so I don't know. Yeah, we'll see if he can get fully healthy and return for next year. That would be key for Providence there, but. Yeah, the Big East across the board. Marquette's good. UConn looks tremendous. Georgetown's built up on a weak non-comp, but whatever, man. 11-2. You mentioned the resume issues with St. John's. It's not going to be as good of a league as we thought it would be, which doesn't mean it can't still turn out, 3 or 4 really quality teams. Just got to see who those teams are going to be, and it doesn't look like Providence will be it. It's been injury hampered. Xavier, we know the injury issues there. DePaul's better, but not a tournament team. Seton Hall's been a big disappointment there, and there's spotty resumes across the board in this league. Just can't avoid it there. Monday results real quick, 2 of them. Iowa State had no issue with Colorado. Colorado had not lost since they played Iowa State in Maui, but ISU went into CU and Boulder and won 79-69. That game was on CBS Sports Network. Given the results of what happened in Lawrence, it's just, as we now are in the first week of 2025, the Cyclones are the clear-cut, there is no debate about it, best team in the Big 12. They own that perch. They're at the top of that mountain, and they aren't even kicking anyone away at the moment there. It's not even close. And then also in the Big 12, a big result on CBS Sports Network, Kansas State beat Cincinnati 70-67 in a pretty awesome and entertaining watch there. Wildcats desperately needed it. They got plenty of more work to do to build up a tournament resume, but Coleman Hawkins stepped up big. The Coleman Hawkins we saw Monday night was the Coleman Hawkins that Kansas State was paying more than $2 million for. He had 20 points, 10 rebounds, hit big foul shots late, key presence, and they were able to beat a good Cincinnati team and give that Bearcats team just its second loss of the season, number 16 in the polls right now. So we will see what comes about with K-State over the next month or so, but they needed that one to get their Big 12 play on a good note and give themselves some real belief that they can turn this around. I was impressed by what I saw in Manhattan on Monday night.
We ready to move on?
Unless you got more, I'm ready to move on.
Let's move on to an interesting headline from earlier in the week. Lawsuit filed on Monday. 6 former Florida State players are suing Leonard Hamilton for at least $1.25 million in what they claim are unpaid NIL promises. Unusual situation, but maybe not going forward. This could just be what we're going to be dealing with every few months or so. We'll get into it next. First, let's get another word from our partners.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
Big headline out of Florida. 6 former Florida State players are suing Leonard Hamilton, that's the FSU men's basketball coach, for at least $1.25 million in what they claim are unpaid NIL promises. Norlander, I know you leading the court report with it. Run us through the details of this unusual situation.
Well, this is a first in college sports history. We have an active coach being sued by former players for not coming through on verbal promises to pay them money. We've never had a story like this. It is interesting that this has become public because I was tipped to this story by a coach in the Big Ten, not the ACC, a coach in the Big Ten last March that basically was, have you heard this thing on Florida State? No, what happened? He's like, they almost didn't play their game they almost boycotted their game against Duke last month because they haven't gotten paid in NIL. And try and suss out and vet out how legitimate it is, and it was kept somewhat hush hush. And then lo and behold, now it's Darren Green Jr., Josh Nickelberry, Primo Spears, Cameron Fletcher, Deontay Green, and Jalen Worley. None of those players are on FSU anymore. So they have rallied together to sue, not the school, not the collective. They are suing Leonard Hamilton in this. The coach specifically is the subject of the lawsuit there. They each claimed they were all told they were getting $250,000 in NIL payments. And this isn't necessarily just with the collective. It's more Hamilton saying the payments would come through business partners. The details of how that NIL payment was going to happen, that's more in the nuances of the case. We don't have to go too far down the rabbit hole here. But by the players no longer being in the program, it also makes it quote unquote easier for them to do this because they are not in that locker room and they are not on that team. They are not in the practices. They're not in the games. They're not traveling. They don't have to worry about the dynamic and the fallout from that. I did reach out to Darren Heitner, who is the attorney representing them in this case. He is, if you're like deep into following college athletics and NIL, he has been one of, the 5 or 6 people that consistently tweet, post about, write about athlete rights and compensation, has for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. He has done this a while. So he told me there's no known timeline for resolution. He told me there could be more plaintiffs in the case. And to me, that signals current players on the roster. Whether more people join it or not remains to be seen. And we wait to see if it gets settled out of court. There were no written contracts that were signed, but talked to him. I talked to a couple other lawyers that know what they're talking about on this, and this will be posted on the court report on Wednesday. In Florida, an oral agreement can be binding, and what you have here apparently is a number of players who can rely on each other as witnesses. Apparently, the family members of these players can also vouch to Hamilton, reinforcing in February of last year that the payments were going to be coming. They never did. But from Heitner's word, this was tried. They tried to settle this matter for a number of months. Nothing happened, and so this is now the last resort. It's quite a story. It's not as I read in the court report. Had they actually gone through and boycotted the Duke game, then you're talking a huge national story. They didn't quite get there because Hamilton was able to do whatever he needed to do and say whatever he needed to say to avoid the unprecedented that we've all kind of wondered for a long time. Would a team actually wind up not playing and make a statement? And now, as what I wrote today states, this is not the only situation where this is happening. Like you get word here and there about the occasional program that might be behind on its NIL payments. We've seen the UNLV quarterback a few months back. He outright left the team because, in his opinion, he was promised $100K or more or whatever it was, and then he didn't get paid that period. He's like, boom, I'm out of here. This kind of story coming to light, whether it gets resolved out of court in 2 weeks or this drags on throughout 2025, we'll wait and see. To me, it increases the possibility that we see something else like this emerge. Because there is no doubt situations right now across college basketball, and I'm not saying it's happening at 90% of places. It might only be happening at 5, 10, 15% of places. But to be sure, there are places where players were told they would be making a certain amount of money over the course of their commitment to a certain program. And no doubt those payments are not paid out in full yet. And I can't help but think that a number of coaches, once this story became public on Monday, started shooting some texts and making some phone calls to the people they needed to make to, hey, are we good? Are we going to be good here? Because they do not want to be the next. You do not want to be the next coach. You do not want to be the next school that could be subject to this. As one attorney, Mitt Winter, who knows what he's talking about, a former college basketball player, said, this is just the latest reminder that players wield a ton of power when it comes to this stuff. And also, as you and I completely agree on this, like, can we just start, making sure that these schools, as soon as possible with this house case settlement, start paying players, get everything on the books so that we don't have to deal with this. But as Winter said, this is more widespread at the power conference level than people even realize. And this is a big story. And to me, this signals, I expected Leonard Hamilton, frankly, to have this be his last season anyway. This is how he could come back next year after they've been middling. This will be used against you every single day in recruiting for anyone you are going after. And then when the portal comes, even more so. I have to believe that Florida State will indeed be in the market for a new coach by the time we get to March.
Yeah, it seems headed that way, based on performance, based on, let's just say it, age, and based on obviously this ugly situation. It seems like if there were a so-called smoking gun, we would be aware of that by now. Like if you're looking for some signed contract or text message that's going to, make this open and shut. I'm not certain that exists. I don't know that exists. But nobody looks good here. I don't think anybody looks good here. And you never know what somebody's motivation is. You see the headline and immediately people are like, well, can you win this case? Is this even winnable? Well, that doesn't always have to be the point. I don't know many college basketball coaches that want to be tied up in a lawsuit, and so, can you just get somebody to settle to avoid, wherever this might be headed?
Can I just interject with one quick thought and then finish up, GP? In fairness to Leonard Hamilton, your point is exactly right. He didn't want to be in this kind of situation. And in fact, I do think this is an example of, and this is why I close the court report on, this new era, NIL, the portal. It is ruthless. And if you are not equipped to handle anything that comes your, like it is pushing coaches out of the profession. And it is absolutely a certain level of Darwinism within college athletics there. And I'm sure the realities of what happened, although Hamilton might have been promising and reassuring, hey, I'm going to get you your money. Clearly he got caught up, or the program, again, this isn't a lawsuit with allegations to where that they didn't get paid. So we're going to give them that benefit of the doubt. But regardless, the very tough difficulty and reality of how NIL is working and trying to keep up with the Joneses and paying all these players. Leonard Hamilton didn't get into coaching to get into situations like this. And I think this got too big, too fast on him. And now he just happens to be the first subject of a groundbreaking lawsuit. And if he's not the last in football or basketball, I won't be surprised. Go ahead, continue.
Right. Like, if he was actually out there making promises, monetary promises that he didn't deliver on, or his program didn't deliver on, or his collective didn't deliver on, that's obviously not okay. Right. I mean, I see sometimes people say things like, even Jim Larinaga last week, about sort of expressing frustration about these young people chasing money. Well, like, these young people, in many cases, this is the most money they will ever make in their entire lives. There are SEC basketball players right now who are making more money coming off of an SEC bench than they will ever make playing basketball again. That's a real thing that's happening. So if these former Florida State players turn down real money to go to Florida State based on promises that they were going to get real money, and then it wasn't delivered, that's shameful, and somebody should be held responsible for that. So if that's what happened here, that side of this doesn't look good. On the other side, the players don't look good either. Like, be a little smarter about this. You can get this stuff in writing. There are agents out there willing to help you with this stuff. Shady ones, sure, stay away from them, but there are legitimate ones out there too, and they can help you navigate this a little better. So it could be a lesson learned for everybody, and like a costly one for Leonard Hamilton, perhaps. We'll see. But I agree with you. I think every program in America should be looking at this and circling and making sure they understand how not to be the next one of these. Or what kind of promises are we making? Are we sure we can deliver on them? Who's speaking for us? And who's not allowed to? All of these things need to be discussed in advance, because this is just the latest example that serves as a reminder that we need more structure, not limits. Sometimes people confuse those two words. I don't mean we need limits on what people can make. I mean, we need structure, just structure in the form of contracts that are clear and undeniable and binding on both sides. This is a story about Florida State, but it could be a story about anybody. And just real quick, I'll make the point. And I'll use a former Florida State player, another former Florida State player, to make the point. Scotty Barnes just signed a 5-year, $225 million contract with Toronto. All right. God bless the NBA, by the way. Scotty Barnes just signed a $225 million contract with Toronto. We all know what he's required to do and what he's going to be paid and when he's going to be paid. Per the contract, when healthy, and I know it's more complicated than this, but when he's asked to play basketball, he's going to, when he's asked to play basketball, he's going to be expected to do it. And then the direct deposits will go into an account of his choosing, every 2 weeks or once a month or however they do it. There are no surprises. He knows exactly what he's supposed to do. The other side knows exactly what they're supposed to do. And we've got to get to a point in college basketball where that is also true. It doesn't have to match what we do in the NBA or other professional sports, but there needs to be more structure, more clarity. We shouldn't have this. You shouldn't be doing something under a promise of $250,000 and not knowing for sure whether you're going to get that money or not. But that is allegedly what happened here.
That is
and that's the
definitely
problem.
a thing. That's definitely a thing. You hear, again, I take half. I'm told something. I believe half of it. I cut in half, and I believe in even half of that. But you hear little things here and there. And by the way, at FSU, where the football coach had to renegotiate his contract after a bad season, Florida State has been an epicenter of melodrama for a variety of different factors as it pertains to the modern world in college athletics. We got to move on because we got a shorter show here. GP's got to head into the studio. He will be on CBS Sports Network on New Year's Day. He is there in New York City. Let's look ahead to what we have over the next couple of days here on CBS Sports Network here today, Wednesday. UConn at DePaul, 2 Eastern, CBS Sports Network. Huskies go on the road. Let's see how DePaul handles itself at home against a really good opponent. Chris Holtman's done a good job in year one there. Undefeated, a couple of good games in Chicago. Undefeated Drake is at UIC at 3 Eastern. We'll see if Drake can remain one of the 4 unbeatens. I predict in my court report on Wednesday, I have 10 predictions for 2025. My prediction is Drake will be the last undefeated team in the group here. We'll see if that can remain true by 5 Eastern today. Also, UNC is at Louisville tonight at 6 Eastern. Intriguing game for both those teams. Villanova is at Butler, 6:30 Eastern on FS1. Obviously, we have the CFP quarterfinals. Penn State got it done on Tuesday night. And we've got the 3 other CFP games going on today. So a really fun Wednesday. It is New Year's Day, and I hope everyone's appreciating they're getting a College Hoops podcast. Then on Thursday, Memphis at FAU. I think that's worth checking in, no doubt about it. Memphis has been quality, but that's a tough one on the road there. We'll see what FAU looks like here in its first year post Dusty May. Northwestern at Penn State. Those 2 teams are probably better than you realize. And that's got a good chance at being competitive there. A really nice opportunity for the winner of that game to reinforce its NCAA tournament credentials as we curl into the first week of January. Rutgers at Indiana on Thursday at 8:30 is a highly urgent game that is must-see because one of those teams is guaranteed to lose. And the loser of that, Rutgers for sure, if it loses, will not have a tournament resume in the moment. And I tend to believe that Indiana won't either if it loses. And then Illinois plays at Oregon. That's a late tip on Thursday night, 10 Eastern. So some quality ball over the next couple of days. We've kind of had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday here, peppered in a little bit. And then this weekend's going to come and the slate is going to be absolutely loaded. I did want to wrap up the show here by thanking, I'm going to give this person a shout out because GP sent me the photo of our billboard in Times Square earlier this week. That was taken by one of his friends that was out there and texted to his wife because why would they text you? And then a lot of Saints info on Twitter. I missed this and then I made sure to watch for the final hour and I didn't see it again. But the Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve presented by Ryan Seacrest, whatever it's called. There was a shot of our billboard in Times Square that was pretty prominent there and surreal to see. Also, I truly don't care, but 4 people have brought it up to me. You are not that tall. So there was some photograph work that indicates we're within an inch of each other. I really don't. But this is I've showed a few people this is kind of cool. Look at this. Parrish isn't that tall, is he? I was like, no, he's not. I don't even give this information. But regardless,
I am that tall. I am as tall as the Marriott Marquis. I'm as tall as the Marriott Marquis. Yeah. I am as tall as the Marriott. I am really that tall. I am really that tan, and I am really that thin.
Yeah,
that's me. That's me.
The wonders of Photoshop. Oh yes, they're really that tall, really that tan, really that thin.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah. But you did not.
That is ridiculous. Just look at that. That's outrageous. If you didn't know better, you would think that that's something that. Those are important people.
If you're watching on YouTube right now, you got shouts to Debo who's producing for us. Nada, we'll see you on Friday. But it is hilarious to me that there were millions of people in Times Square last night
going, "What is that? Who is that?
And who are these bozos? What is this?" But it is very cool. And that's go ahead.
They tried to cancel us for promoting premarital sex, but now look, who gets the last laugh? They said you can't promote premarital sex on a college basketball podcast, but look now.
I think they said that actually.
I think they said that. I think some people said that. I think I heard that.
All right, if you want to turn this into we shocked the world situation, we shocked ourselves, no doubt about it.
Shocked the world.
I'm going into the city later this month with my wife, as a coincidence would have it, for her birthday. So we're going to try and dip there. You did not go down to Times Square though, which was the smart move.
Yeah,
as you well know,
it's
big time rain,
well, first off,
thunderstorms, lightning. You made the smart call there, but if you can swing over there before you head back today, that might be a cool thing.
So I had on like one of the live from Times Square shows on the TV here in the hotel, and then like right out this window to my left is Times Square. Like I watch it on TV or just look out my window, either one. And so there's like a 15-second delay on. There's one point last night, speaking of the weather, where it's like I hear a loud bang, and I'm like, "Oh God, here we go!"
I can't believe they didn't evacuate Times Square. I was like, "There's lightning hitting New York City, and they're just keeping all these people there." But
okay, but I didn't know it was like my head went to a bad place. I was like, "Oh God, I was like, so I'm watching on TV, like waiting for Anderson Cooper to get blown up or something. I don't know what's happening, and it was just thunder. But the thunder was so loud, I thought it was a terrorist attack. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's how bad the weather was in Manhattan last night. I thought there was a terrorist attack, but it was really just thunder. You can't just really walk to Times Square. Like I did walk outside at some point.
Yeah,
and
you got to go through security. You got to go through the whole thing.
Oh, like right? I had to just to get back to my hotel. I had to show a hotel key and like smile.
Yeah,
I had to smile and be like,
you had to be vetted.
Yeah, I was like, sir, I know you're trying to keep me off of 54th, but I've got a picture on my phone.
Why don't you hang a Ralph here? Go check out that billboard, see if you recognize someone, and then they come back and be like, nope, you're not that tan, you're not that tall, you're not that skinny. That ain't
it. Would have been tough. It would have been tough. It wouldn't have believed it was me. But I witnessed. I was outside for a minute, and I was like, yeah, this doesn't sound like this is. I'm just going to get some chicken and lamb and rice from this truck and go back inside. So that's what I did.
As Danny Grace points out in the chat, lightning struck the Washington Capitol, the Washington Monument, the Empire State Building, and the World Trade Center all on New Year's Eve. That's probably a good sign for 2025. I feel like that's an omen that we should.
It's going to be the best year ever, I think. This is what I'm predicting. Best year in the history of our planet.
You got to get out of here. But before we do you have either podcast related or personally related? I feel like I ask you this every year and you still never have anything. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, I'm going to try and get taller.
Well, that's not going to happen. So what's number 2?
Try to get tanner.
There's a chance.
And try to get thinner.
Okay, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Okay,
but I really want to be taller or just get shorter friends. I got me a new friend that I play golf with, and he's shorter than me by like an inch, and I just love it. I just bully him. I call him little all the time and call him. I didn't know how much fun it was to talk down to short people. I've never been able to do it. You have
children, by the way, as a reminder.
I know, but I don't consider like my oldest son's taller than me, and I think my little guys are going to also be. But I do have a new golf buddy that's like he's rocking 5'5", and it's fun. I always looked at people who would talk about short people like me, and I'd be like, "What are you like? Okay, I'm short. What's so fun about talking about that?" But now I have a new short person in my friend group that I can talk down to, and it is a lot of fun. But I'm gonna try to get taller. That's my resolution.
What should be one of our resolutions for the podcast in 2025? Do we finally get a new logo?
Are you crazy?
Debo, who is one of our podcast bosses, is actually pinch hitting here, and he's got a podcast. He's got to do another pod in 10 minutes. Debo, turn on that mic.
No
Debo,
comment.
do we get a new logo in 2025?
We work closer towards a new logo.
Hey, closer every day.
New logo 2025.
You know what else we're closer to every day? Death. I mean, technically,
we spent the budget on the billboard.
Yeah, why are you complaining? We get a billboard, and who's never satisfied? Here's Norlander. What else can we get? Can we get anything else? I'm just appreciative of what we have.
Do you not want to try and get better every day? Make the podcast better every month, or do you want to be satisfied? Do you want to settle? Do you want to settle, or do you want to get better?
I settled a long time ago. Look at me. You don't think I've settled? Look at me. I settled. Isn't it pretty clear that I've settled? Here's my resolution for 2025. I want to be more appreciative of the things that I have. So I'm not going to sit around.
You say that every year. Every year.
But this is the year I mean it. This is the year I mean it. I'm not just going to sit around wanting for a new logo. I'm going to sit around just being appreciative of my new billboard.
Oh, it's my new billboard. Okay. All right. It's my new billboard. Okay. Here we go. Right. Here we go. Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Hey, don't want you to be late for that call time. Why don't you scoot on out of here?
Oh, that's my new resolution too, to be on time to make my call times.
Well, you might be 0 for 1.
Yeah. starting tomorrow. Starting next week. That's my new resolution. I'm going to get tall. I'm going to walk in that building on time and tall. Those are my resolutions. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle, legend. Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching and listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. There's more of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in the comments. So please do that. We're going to talk to you again real soon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Take care.